How's it going, friends? Welcome back to the channel and welcome to Tier 3 of the Resident Evil Iceberg. If you haven't seen the previous video, I recommend you go watch that, as you know, I explain a lot of stuff that gets referenced here. But without further ado, let's get into Tier 3 of the Resident Evil Iceberg. Tier 3 is called the Lone Agent. In the description for it reads, an individual who has taken it upon themselves to uncover what the big names and logos are hiding. Entries in this tier are known to those who are more intimately familiar with the series and its community. And the first topic is LTRE, or Let's Talk Resident Evil. So this is a podcast about Resi that has been going on since RE5's release back in 2009. They released hundreds of videos breaking down, Resident Evil news, commentary, let's plays, and that sort of thing. And I definitely recommend checking them out, and I'll leave a link for them down below. So, Mad Chainsaw Mode. So this is a mode in the RE4 remake demo. It wasn't advertised before release, and players would stumble upon it by accident because it unlocks just like randomly whenever you start a new playthrough. Enemies are a lot more powerful in this mode, and at some point in the mode, a version of the Chainsaw Man would appear with a flaming chainsaw. There were no autosaves in this mode, so fans would have to basically just cycle through new games over and over again until they got the mode again. That is until Twitter user Miner50001 discovered that there was a cheat code that you could enter on the main menu to unlock this mode. And for those of you wondering how to use the cheat code, it is pressing L1 and right one at the same time, and then pressing up, left, down, and right on the D-pad, and then square, triangle, circle, X, X. And once you do that, it will unlock the mode for you. Invisible enemies. So this is a mode in the RE1 remake where, as the name suggests, the enemies are invisible. So you unlock this after beating the game on normal or higher. And since the enemies are all visible, you really just have to rely on sound cues or seeing. You're also able to see the reflection in the puddles below. Or Yawn the snake will leave a dust trail that you can see where he's going. And if you beat the mode in less than 5 hours, you get this image, a message from Shinji Mikami, and some concept art. Looking up Ash's shirt without being called a pervert. Oh, we're already horny this soon into the iceberg. So fans claim that there's a way to do this because they really want to do it without being called out for it. But there probably is. I don't know. I don't really care to do it. Rats spread the T-virus. So this is kind of shown in lore, but many fans can just gloss over it. But we see the rats in the RE2 remake getting infected with the T-virus, and eventually they moved into the city and started to infect other people and stuff like that, along with the water supply that was also infected with the T-virus. And that's really just how the Raccoon City outbreak was started. And according to a guidebook for the original RE2, the rats mutated in the sewers and grew really large, but they were eventually killed by giant roaches. Which is why we never see them in that game. Samurai Edge. So these are the iconic handguns that appear in pretty much every game. They were originally designed by Robert Kendo for the STARS members. And its real life model is the Beretta 92FS. And like I said before, these have appeared in multiple games, and many fans have converted their own Berettas into, custom STARS Samurai Edges. The Looking Glass House. So this is the mansion in the first Resident Evil movie. It is kind of a cover for the entrance to Umbrella's underground hive lab. And Alice and her coworker Spencer took the guises of a married couple that lived there, to cover for Umbrella. And the actual building used for filming is called Schloss Lindstedt. I think I pronounced that right. But this is a small castle built between 1858 and 1861 in Potsdam, Germany. And it is currently a UNESCO World Heritage Site, and you can go visit there. It's very historically significant for that area. So Matilda. So this is Leon's personal handgun that appears in both RE2 and RE4. And it can be upgraded, and its description reads 12-shot capacity 9mm polymer frame handgun, a non-standard issue gun with problems that make it impractical for the general public. And like I said before, it also appears in RE4, which it can be also upgraded in that game as well. Blue Umbrella. So this is another version of Umbrella formed in 2007 from the American branch after Umbrella collapsed. And they've appeared a few times in the series, mainly in RE7, where Chris and the BSAA teamed up with them to go stop Evelyn during the Baker House incident. They also supplied the Wolf Squad in Village with, various types of equipment and stuff like that. And they haven't been seen since, but I assume they'll probably appear in Requiem since they've appeared in the other two. Plant 43. So this is the successor to Plant 42. It is the IV that appears during the underground lab section of the RE2 remake, and it infects, several hosts, and a few of them appear in both RE2 and the remake. Unrealistic gas prices. So at the beginning of RE2 remake, during the section with the gas station, a lot of fans remarked that the gas prices were unrealistic. This could be for several reasons. It might be incorrect to the time, but also, gas prices are so expensive nowadays. So, but yeah, dangerous cows. So in RE4, you can kill the cows in the village and the farm, but sometimes they will either charge at you or kick you, resulting in some very funny deaths. DSP Gaming's Revelations 2 negative comments. So this could mean two things. DSP, or Darkside Phil, is kind of known online for not being that good at gaming. So I saw some comments criticizing the way he played Revelations 2. It also seemed from some of the playthroughs that I watched, he didn't really enjoy it, so it might be that as well. It's hard to tell for sure. Mr. Everywhere. So this is the bobblehead in RE7 that you can break, and there are 20 of them, and if you break all of them, they get an achievement, and you also get 2 items. You get the Essence of Defense, which just reduces damage taken while blocking, and Running Shoes, which increase your walking speed. RE6 Jake Ending Sequel Bait. So after you beat Ada's campaign in RE6, you get a secret cutscene that shows Jake in the desert fighting monsters. And, it's obvious this was an MCU type of post-credit scene setup, trying to set up Jake as the new hero for the franchise. But obviously, that didn't pan out because we haven't seen him since, and it doesn't look like he'll be coming back anytime soon. Shooting the lake in RE4. So in both versions of RE4, if you shoot the lake, Del Lava will appear and eat you. Screen filters. So several games have the ability to unlock screen filters, such as in RE2, where you can unlock the Noir filter, or the Villain filter in the RE4 remake, which just makes everything red. Daymare 1994. So this is a third-person survival horror game, which many people say was inspired by the RE2 remake. Just watching the trailer, I can understand why. It looks pretty similar, and it actually looks pretty fun. Most of the reviews for this game are positive, so I'm probably going to check it out, just because I love these types of games. Luis killing Leon. So in the original RE4, if you keep shooting Luis, eventually it will result in a cutscene where he kills Leon. And unfortunately, this was cut from the remake for unknown reasons. Dead Rising references. So Dead Rising has had several. So Dead Rising is another Capcom property with zombies. So of course, they've had several references to Resident Evil, such as in the first game, you can find a shop called Jill's Sandwiches. And in the remaster of the first game, you can also unlock several outfits, of the Resident Evil characters. And in Dead Rising 4, in the Capcom Heroes DLC, you could get Jill's outfit for Frank West. Everything is Cassandra's fault. So this is a line said by Bella Dimitrescu, where she just blames Cassandra for everything for letting Ethan into the castle.
I can't believe Cassandra caused all this mess.
While Cassandra's just dead, so poor Cassandra being thrown underneath the bus. Tofu. So I mentioned this in the last year, but in both versions of RE2, you can unlock a special mode where you play as a block of tofu and escaping Raccoon City. In RE2 Remake even added a flan option and other variants of tofu. Tall Oaks. So this is the American city in RE6 where the outbreak happens. And so Tall Oaks in the 17th century was a meeting place for Native Americans, where they would do rituals and hold meetings in the caverns below. And eventually, as settlers moved in, a church was built underneath the caverns to cover them up. And the city grew until the C virus was released in order to cover up the assassination of US President Adam Bedford. And not a lot of people survived. And Leon Kennedy and Helena Harper were among one of the only survivors that escaped the city before the US military struck it with an airstrike, destroying the city completely, mirroring Raccoon City about a decade before. The organization. So this is a rival to Umbrella. Ada Wong was sent by them to infiltrate the Arclay lab and steal several viruses. For this, they also managed to switch Wesker to their side and have him betray Umbrella. And after the Raccoon City incident, Ada was able to give them samples of G, and they sent Wesker to Rockford Island to collect the T. Veronica virus. And after a fight with the Redfield siblings, Wesker was able to acquire the virus from Steve Burnside's body. And Wesker would go on to retrieve other samples of various viruses, but the organization hasn't been referenced since RE4, so it's unsure if, he parted ways with them, or if they're just still around after Wesker's death. Cat ears. So in the RE4 remake, if you beat the game on professional with an S+ difficulty, you unlock a pair of cat ears for Leon, which gives all guns infinite ammo. Jill's diary. So this is an item that can be found in the OG RE3, and it depicts Jill's struggle with PTSD after the events of RE1. She has vivid memories of her teammates dying, and she remarks that Chris is just irritated in picking fights with other cops. And he eventually leaves on a vacation to Europe, and Barry remarks that he's going to send his family to Canada and then follow after Chris. But Jill resolves to stay in Raccoon City and investigate Umbrella for a little bit longer before joining them. And of course, this leads into the events of RE3, where she's trapped in the city. And this file can also be found in Operation Raccoon City during a level. Grenade launcher glitch. So there is a glitch in the RE1 remake, specifically on the GameCube section, as they patched it out in newer releases. But by using the item box and the grenade launcher and its ammo in a certain way, you can essentially glitch the ammo to the point where you can just have insane amounts and essentially have infinite ammo for the grenade launcher. Resident Evil Gaiden. So this is largely unknown to most fans, but there is a Game Boy Color Resident Evil game. It's non-canon and involves Leon and Barry going to investigate an infected cruise ship. So, Revelations, essentially. And I've played a little bit of this, and it's an interesting adaptation of the Resident Evil formula. So you explore the map from a top-down perspective, many Game Boy games in that time. But as soon as you enter combat, it goes to first person, and it's just an interesting way that they adapted the Resi formula to fit on the Game Boy. However, the game ends with Leon being revealed to be a BOW in disguise, so obviously it's non-canon, but you get a little bit more Barry, so that's pretty fun. But the game is notoriously rare nowadays and expensive. It's kind of my personal grief, as I've been trying to collect every Resident Evil game, and this game, just the cartridge alone on eBay is $200. So one day I'll eventually get it, but for now it's just going to hang over my head. RE4 was originally Devil May Cry. So RE4 went through several different iterations of its development, and the earliest one was eventually spun off into the first Devil May Cry game, as the team, really liked the aesthetics and vibe, but didn't feel like it melded with Resident Evil, so they were able to, just go off and do their own thing. But, once you know that, it's pretty hard to not see the similarities between the two, and Devil May Cry is now a juggernaut franchise of its own, so it worked out for Capcom. Vendetta Gun Fu. So in the CG film RE Vendetta, Chris and Leon both use a form of kung fu with guns called Gun Fu. This is inspired by the John Wick films, and it's pretty insane just watching these scenes. It's really cool, but just nonsensical, so it's pretty fun. Skirtless Ada videos. Again, Resi fans are just horny. Yeah, there's probably a ton out there. Go look them up yourself. RE4 YouTube Poop Deeper Cut Edition. So this is just a iconic YouTube poop video for Resident Evil 4. It has over 1 million views, and it was just really nostalgic, watching that again. Because YouTube used to be full of those types of videos. It was great. Krauser knife weakness. So in RE4, if you upgrade your knife to the max capacity, Krauser is actually pretty weak to it, and he can go down almost instantly if you time it right. RE7 Evil Dead. So a lot of fans speculate that the Evil Dead movies inspired RE7 quite a bit, such as Mia sharing the same name as the main character from the 2013 reboot, and both of them getting possessed and attacking their loved ones. Which, if you look at both of their character designs while they're possessed, they look pretty similar. There's also a moment where Jack picks up his chainsaw shears and remarks "groovy," referencing Ash from the original movies. And Ethan also gets his hand chopped off, which also references Ash. I wish he would have attached a chainsaw to his hand at that moment. That would have been pretty cool. Pretty cool gameplay mechanic. Nemesis safe spots. So in the R3 remake, there are several spots where you can hide from Nemesis. These include the toy shop and, just the safe rooms. But there's also a secret safe room that is not actually safe from Nemesis. He can enter, and it's resulted in some pretty insane jump scares from people. Chicken Brad. So this is a meme about Brad Vickers, the helicopter pilot for Stars. He's notoriously known for being skittish and just a coward, resulting in the Stars members giving him the nickname Chicken Heart. Wesker's Report. So this is a fake documentary made by Capcom and included in pre-orders of Code of Veronica. So it's just Wesker recapping the events of the series up until that point, and it just uses footage from the games to convey that story. And I'll leave a link down below to it as someone put it up on YouTube. Chicago Typewriter Special Reload. So if you have the Chicago Typewriter, or Sweeper, as it's called in the remake, equipped, and you also have Leon's pinstripe suit, he will do a very goofy reload, which isn't needed because the because the typewriter is infinite ammo. It's just very goofy and totally Leon. PRL 412. So this is an energy-based weapon that you can unlock in the original RE4. It's not included in the remake, unfortunately. It's unlocked after beating RE4 on Professional. It's very powerful and can one-shot most bosses. It also has the same effect as a flash grenade on like Explosive Plagas, so it'll instant kill them. Elza Walker. So I mentioned her in my previous video, but she was part of the canceled Resident Evil 1.5, the first version of 2 that was made. She shares a few similarities with Claire, who would eventually replace her, and her outfit is an unlockable outfit for Claire in the RE2 remake. Cross-dressing freak. So this is a remark made by Claire to Alfred Ashford in Code Veronica after they realized that he was essentially cross-dressing as his twin sister. It'll be interesting to see how they handle this in the remake. Suplex upskirt. So if you suplex next to Ashley, sometimes the line will trigger about, her calling you a pervert. RE4 out of bounds at the farm. So in a few sections of the farm, you're able to hop the fence and go out of bounds, and you're able to collect some different items and collectibles that you weren't able to before. Leon the Professional references. So obviously, given the name, there's several references to Leon the Professional, which is a movie. Obviously, Leon's name, the professional difficulty, and Natalie Portman's character in the movie is named Matilda, which Leon's gun is also named Matilda, as I mentioned before. Uncensored RE1 intro. So the Japanese version of RE1 had a fully colored uncensored intro, but the North American and European releases were in black and white and censored, which sucks because that intro is awesome. But luckily in the GOG versions of the games on PC, we were finally able to get the fully colored uncensored intros over here in North America. RE4 firing range background effects. So in the firing range in RE4, there are several items in the background you can shoot to have like different effects on the firing range. So for instance, if you shoot a chimney during the village background, it will fill the range with smoke. And if you shoot a beehive, a swarm of bees will fill the firing range. RE8 dynamic menu. So this is just a fact that wherever you are in the game, in RE8, the menu will change. So we have this one and like this one, which is pretty cool. I feel like they should have done that for more games. Which they also do that, I believe they also do that for 4, if I'm not mistaken. Zombie Brad. So a zombified version of Brad Vickers can be found in the original version of RE2. He has lots of health, but taking him down unlocks the alternate costume room for you. He's also seen in the RE3 remake, where he's the one who bites Marvin. And he also says a few words, he's one of the only zombies in the series to do so. Dante Ravioli. So he is a very popular Resident Evil YouTuber who is known for like beating the games in just insane ways. I remember he did one video where he beat RE4 with doors. He also beat it without using the merchant or running. And he also beat the RE2 remake where every enemy was a licker. Beginning our Ghost Girl. So in the RE7 demo, a ghost girl can be spotted in multiple locations. This obviously scared everyone, and she became a viral sensation. I remember like going through the demo back then and just trying to see where she was and if I could spot her. And my buddy and I even spent like an entire night after school just going through and, trying to find her and, just being scared shitless. So it's never been confirmed, but it's most likely that it was just Evelyn messing around. But the model used is actually a scrapped character named Remy Baker, who was in the game for a while, but her character aspects were eventually split between, Zoe, Mia, and Evelyn. And we're actually going to end the video right here because during editing, the video got way too long, so I decided to chop it in half. But the next part should be up within a day or two of this upload. But without further ado, I want to thank you guys for watching. Leave your likes, comments, any comments about the topics of the iceberg down below. But without further ado, I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye-bye.